Time has passed since our heroes have arrived on the scene. Things have been rocky for some, and easier for the rest. Even though some are complacent with the way things are, some are not.
The Capitol building is a structure located downtown where the state government officiates laws and where laws are created. The mayor is sitting at his desk combing his curly hair, and as he stands, he towers over everybody with his height. The mayor says,
"I wonder who these new Power Rangers are. Never thought our city would witness them one day, son."
A short, stubby preteen with long flowing brown hair walks into the office and replies,
"Dad, who cares? They saved our skins, that's all that matters."
The mayor then says,
"Chuck, this is one hell of a scoop. I remember witnessing the Power Rangers Museum when I was attending college in Angel Grove."
Chuck then says,
"Dad, how many times are you going to tell me these old playoff stories? The only thing that would amuse me is if a Kamen Rider showed up. I clearly prefer more substance than most."
The mayor chuckles and says,
Kamen Rider isn't even real. The Power Rangers are more than just comic book stories you read all day, son.
Chuck then replies,
"Dad, whatever. Just take me to the comic book store."
A petite Mexican woman with short black hair then walks in and says,
"Miles, are you arguing with Chuck about Power Rangers and Kamen Riders again?"
He then replies,
"Oh, no, honey, I was just taking him to the comic book store. I would rather not get put on the couch again."
She then replies,
"Good, I hope you guys have a good time."
As their limousine traverses through the streets of downtown San Hernando, Miles says,
"Son, so how's school going? Have your grades been good? Have you found a girlfriend yet?"
Chuck then says,
"Maybe if you were around me more, you'd know."
Miles then says,
"Chuck, I'm here now, and you have my undivided attention."
Chuck then says,
"My grades have been fine, and no, I haven't found a girlfriend. But I have made a new friend."
Miles then says,
"Who is it? Who is it?"
Chuck replies,
"His name's Marcus. He's cool, and he likes Kamen Rider like me."
Miles replies,
"Well, sometimes people may not have the best experiences at home. I hope he's not having problems there. If he does accept your invitation, tell him he's welcome to come over."
As the limousine stops, Miles says,
"Son, well, we're here. I'll be parked out back waiting."
Chuck then says,
"Alright, I hope those rude employees aren't here today. I just want to grab my comic books and go."
Miles then says,
"Son, be the bigger person. Remember, don't stoop to their level."
"Yeah, Dad, I heard you for the 100th time."
The driver then opens the door and Chuck departs. At the local comic book store, while the manager is polishing off the comics and organizing them, the employees are conversing, and one of the people says, "It's sure a bummer that Jacob's Vision is taking a break making games. I was looking forward to them." The other man then says, "Yeah man, I hear that huge explosion was from testing a game that put us in games." The manager then says, "You two get back to work, we have customers coming in, slack off on your own time." Chuck walks in and says to one of the employees,
"I'd like the new Kamen Rider Ace comic book, please."
The employee then says, "We haven't had any come in yet." Chuck replies,
"All you guys have is comic books about Power Rangers in here. Who cares about them? We've seen them save the world 1,000,000,000 times. Hell, I just saw them in action a couple weeks ago."
The other employee says, "Look kid, just because your dad is the mayor doesn't mean you got to act like you own the place. Those comics are hard to come by, so you'll have to wait." Chuck then says,
"I'm not above waiting, but it seems like we go through this every time. It seems you never have them. Can't you two do something better than give bad customer service?"
The manager then comes out and says, "I have it right here. I had to go through a lot of stock to get it, but I found it." Chuck says,
"About time."
The sale is made and Chuck departs to his limousine. The mayor says,
"Did it go smoothly?"
Chuck replies,
"No, but I got the comic I wanted, as always."
Miles says,
"That's all that matters."
Back in the store, the manager says, "Damn it Dale and Dylan, didn't I tell you to? When he comes in you make sure to get what he wants." People flock towards the mayor's opinions, and if his dad has a bad one of us, then that could cost us business. Be difficult with him again and you two will be fired, do you hear me? The two then nod their heads. Back at the underground base, as Maxwell is looking over some documents, he calls Roderick and Stone into his office. Maxwell says,
Roderick and Stone, effective today your jobs have changed. Since my son has decided to join the team, it will be you guys' job to secure the base.
Roderick replies,
Are you sure, sir?
Maxwell then says affirmative. The two then put their hands on their heads and do an army-like salute. Grace then walks in and says,
The last few weeks have been crazy.
Maxwell says,
Yeah, they needed some fresh air. I decided to let Jackson take them to the fair.
Grace replies.
Let's just hope that Zion is taking a break today too.
As Jackson and the other four are at the fair, Lion is enjoying himself playing different games and Becky is walking eating cotton candy. Jackson says,
So guys, this is the National Fair. We humans come here every year to have a good time with our friends and families.
Alexa says,
This is a long way from our world. Our idea of fun was gathering around fires with the village and telling old stories.
Jackson replies,
That sounds interesting. It sounds like the cultures of the indigenous peoples of my world.
Alexa says,
The who?
Jackson replies,
Don't worry about it. You guys wouldn't know.
Alexa says.
I'm sure we wouldn't.
Alexa then stops Jackson and says,
Don't think just because you're watching over us that you're the leader of the team. I was chosen by all three of our masters to take up the responsibility.
Jackson then says,
Of course not. Think of me as an advisor. I mean, I wouldn't want to step on anyone's toes or anything.
Alexa then says,
Fine with me.
Jackson then looks over and sees Colby in meditation. Jackson says,
What's his deal?
Alexa says,
I don't know. There's not telling with him.
Jackson then walks over and says,
Colby, are you okay, man?
Colby says,
I'm okay. Of course I am. What makes you think I'm not?
Jackson then says,
Well, you're meditating. Usually when people do that, they're usually stressed about something.
Colby replies,
I'm okay. Don't worry about me.
Jackson then says,
Come on, man. If we're going to be a team, we shouldn't be afraid to share how we're feeling about things.
Colby then says,
Well, for one, my role is far better than this dump.
Jackson then says,
Colby, you're not going to feel any better just sitting around all day moping about what happened. Try to ease your mind. Maybe have a little fun. Why not ride a roller coaster?
Colby replies,
You wouldn't catch me dead being a part of anything you and these idiots deem as fun. That would be a waste of my time.
Jackson looks at him with a face of disdain and says,
Making the best out of things isn't a waste of time.
Colby then says,
Jackson, listen. I don't want to be bothered. Leave me alone and let me get back to my meditating.
Jackson then says,
Okay, whatever, man.
As Jackson walks away, Alexis slaps Colby on the back of the head and says,
You can be such an asshole sometimes.
Colby responds.
You're lucky you're a girl, alright.
Alexa then interjects, balls up her fists, and says,
You'd what?
Colby responds.
Nothing.
Alexa then says,
Good. You're as smart as I thought.
Jackson walks over to the high striker and sees Lion participating. The worker says test your strength and see if you can win any prizes. As Lion grabs the gavel and strikes the machine, the puck knocks the bell attached to the machine in the air and lands in a man's hand. The worker looks astonished and says that was amazing, take any prize you want. Jackson ponders about the conversation his dad and him had a few days earlier. In the memory, Maxwell is sitting in Jackson's room with him and says,
Son, I don't want to keep them camped up in this base all day, and I don't want to keep them from getting some fresh air. I'm going to need you to look after them when they're in the outside world and make sure they don't get into any trouble or anything.
I'll do my best.
Maxwell then says,
Son, I'm glad I can count on you.
Back at the fair, Jackson then goes over to Lion and says,
Do you realize what you're doing?
Lion responds with,
Yes! Look at all the prizes I won!
Jackson then says,
Lion, you have to be careful how you use your strength. We're trying to keep a low profile.
Lion with a huge smile on his face replies,
Yes, brother!
Jackson replies,
Brother?
Jackson then pushes Lion off of him and says,
Lion, we've only known each other for about 3 weeks now, and you consider me a brother?
Lion then says,
I figured since we're going to be here for a while with you, I will embrace you into the family sooner than later.
Jackson then says,
Thanks, Lion. I appreciate it, man. You and Becky sure are welcoming.
Lion then says,
I miss home. But man, this world is great. The fun never stops here.
Jackson says.
I'm glad you're enjoying yourself.
Becky then calls Jackson over to the ring toss. Becky says,
Jackson, I've been having trouble with this. I would love to get my hands on that cute stuffed bear. It's so fluffy.
Jackson says,
Stand back. I got this.
The man in charge of the game says good luck with winning one of those for your girlfriend, pal. Jackson then says,
She's not my girlfriend. I'm just helping out.
The worker then replies, whatever you say, dude. Jackson then picks up the rings and says,
The key to winning this game is to straighten up your wrist and then throw the rings with your dominant hand.
Becky then looks on in awe as the rings are landing around the bottles. The worker then says congratulations, as he is handing Jackson the bear. Becky then says,
Aw, thanks, Jackson.
As she is holding the bear in her hand. She then kisses him on the cheek and walks towards the others. While Jackson cracks a smile, the worker then says, and you said she wasn't your girlfriend. Jackson says,
It was just a kiss on the cheek, and nothing more.
Jackson's ringer on his phone goes off and Jackson says,
Oh yeah, I have a class to teach in 10 minutes. I've got to get you guys home.
Jackson runs over to everyone and says,
I'm going to call Mobile Express. I've got a class to teach, so I got to get you guys back home.
Lion then says,
Oh man, I was just starting to have fun, brother.
Colby then says,
I really don't care for this, but I also don't want to go back to that damn base.
Alexa then says,
This is the way things are now since the creator doesn't want us to expose ourselves. This is our new home now. Come on.
On the Chaos Squadron's ship, Cyan is contemplating who he will select next to carry out his plan. Cyan says,
Razor, you're up today.
Razor then says,
I've got just the guy to get the job done, master.
Razor then takes a cartridge and inserts it in the creation machine on the ship. A monster with blue knight-like armor and a golden lancer appears. At the karate dojo, Jackson arrives and looks over to see Sensei Han. Sensei Han is a bald, skinny, 6'2" man of Chinese descent in his early 70s. Sensei Han says, Jackson, you're late. This is unlike you to be late. Jackson says,
I know, Sensei. My apologies. I got caught up at the fair and lost track of time.
Sensei Han says, Jackson, I understand, but you must value your priorities before fun. Remember, the one who shows up the earliest fulfills his purpose first. Jackson then says,
Yes, Sensei.
Sensei Han then says, also, I have found out the dates for the juniors martial arts tournament. I hear that the competition will be tough this year. I'm counting on you to decide who represents us. Jackson then says,
Don't worry. I've got the perfect idea.
Jackson walks in the main room and sees his students excitedly waiting for his lesson for the day. Jackson says,
I'm sorry for being late. Now, let's get to the lesson.
Sensei Han then nods his head and goes back into his office. David then says,
Sensei, I never thought you'd get here. What are we going to learn today?
Jackson then says,
Give me a minute to get my thoughts together, and I'll be over there.
David replies,
Okay, but don't take too long. I've been working on my spin kicks.
At the base, Maxwell and Grace are working on the computer trying to see if they can find anything else from the explosion. Grace then says,
The systems are picking up an energy signature from another Zord.
Maxwell then says,
Really?
Grace replies,
I haven't been able to pinpoint where it is. It's been moving to different locations.
Maxwell then replies,
I wonder what it could be.
Colby walks up and rudely asks,
So what's the progress on the virtual transporter? I'm sure you're halfway finished by now.
Maxwell says,
For now it's going slow. Right now, we're just trying to salvage whatever we can from the game. Like I said, it could take a while to build this machine. I lost all of my plans, Kobe. I'm just trying to do my best, man.
Colby says,
Man, I miss home. This planet isn't for us. Jackson's practically babysitting us, and no matter how hard we try, we don't fit in. These last 3 weeks have been rough, and I just wish I was back there.
Colby walks away with a tear in his eyes. Lyon, Becky, and try to comfort him, but he shrugs them off and walks on the patio. Lyon then says,
Well, he's more dramatic than usual today.
Becky then says,
Hey, like I said, give him some time.
Alexa then says,
Yeah, let him blow off some steam.
Back at the dojo, Jackson is training his class. As Jackson is training his students, he hears a big explosion and people yelling outside. Jackson then says in his head,
Now, I have to finish training for this class.
Jackson stops and says,
Everybody, stay here. I'm going to go get help.
Jackson looks out the window and says,
Damn, it's one of the Chaos Squadron monsters again.
Sensei Han says Jackson is right. Everybody, let's get to the back. Everybody goes to the back room and Jackson says,
I'm going to go find help. You all stay here.
Sensei Han says, be careful, Jackson, it's hectic out there. Jackson walks outside and runs toward the monster. When Jackson arrives at the scene, he sees the mayor and his son in a fetal position and the mayor's security laid dead as Lanker raises his lancer. Miles says,
Please don't do this. Don't take my son. Take me.
Lanker then says,
I don't give a damn whose life I take. But since you are offering, I'll take yours first.
Chuck then says,
You better not lay a hand on my dad.
Lanker replies,
Matter of fact, I changed my mind since this one is running his mouth. I'll take his life first.
Miles screams.
No!
As Lanker is getting ready to strike, Jackson says,
Stop!
And jumps up and high kicks him. Miles says,
Thank you. Me and Chuck were going to the fair and all of a sudden that monster attacked us.
Jackson then says,
I see you guys need to get out of here before it gets dangerous.
Miles then says,
You don't have to tell me twice.
The mayor and his son depart and unknowingly to Jackson hide behind the nearest bush. Chuck says,
What are you thinking, Daddy told us to leave?
Miles replies,
Something is special about him. Why would he of all people step up to save us?
The monster looks and says,
If you ever stand in my way, you will perish. No one will defy the great Lancer.
Jackson says,
The only thing that's going to be great is how I'm going to beat you.
Jackson then charges towards him. As Jackson is charging towards him with his digital prism in his hand, he calls his dad. Jackson says,
Dad, we got some trouble downtown. Call the others.
Maxwell responds from the base and says,
Okay, son, but I have to let you know we did have a bit of a fallout with Kobe, but I'll make sure the others are down there ASAP.
Lanker walks towards Jackson and knocks his morpher out of his hand and it falls under a nearby bench. Jackson then tries to go get it but is intercepted by Lanker. Lanker says,
You won't be going anywhere.
And strikes Jackson with a punch to the gut. Jackson falls to his knees and says,
Is that all you got?
Lanker then says,
This is just the beginning.
And kicks Jackson face. The mayor says,
I've got to do something.
Chuck then says,
No, you don't. That guy just killed a security guard. You think you can really stand a chance against him?
Miles replies,
I don't, but there's something I can do.
Chuck then says,
Dad, stay back. This isn't going to be a happy ending if you don't.
Back at the base, Maxwell walks over to Becky, Lyon, and Alexa and says,
Guys, there's a new monster downtown. Jackson needs you all help. I'll go talk to Kobe.
The three leave the base and head toward downtown. Maxwell walks towards the break room and sees Colby sitting down with a sad look on his face. He is sitting and reminiscing about his time in Eden. Maxwell then says,
Yo, Kobe, do you have a minute to spare?
Colby says,
What the hell do you want? Did you just come out here to tell me how I can't get home again?
Maxwell then says,
No, but I did come to help you regardless. I know change can be difficult for anybody to accept, but We're in a rocky situation and I don't see any easy way of getting out of this. You're going to have to adapt to being here, Colby. I'm sorry.
Maxwell then shows a hologram of Earth and then says,
Colby, I know you want to go home, but you have to think about me and Jackson's home too. It's being attacked by the Chaos Squadron almost every single week. And there are lives in danger, families, children, innocent people who just want to live their lives but can't. I'm putting my trust in you and the others to protect this planet from the Chaos Squadron. That's one of the reasons why I created you guys in the game. I understand that home is special to you. Hell, it's special to me. I helped create that home. We may be different, but I know we have one similar goal, and that's to take down Lord Scion and his crew. I promise I'll help you guys get home, but you have to help protect Earth or me and Jackson won't have a home.
Maxwell then says,
and lastly, don't see this as babysitting. We're only looking after you guys. Not everybody is as nice in this world as me and Jackson. We have to make sure that you guys don't cause too much of a disturbance or get into something crazy, because there's no telling what people would do to you guys if they found out what you guys really were.
Colby then says,
Creator, I didn't expect that from you. You're not that bad of a guy.
Maxwell then says,
yeah, I must be. I did create you and others.
Colby responds,
but you did create the Chaos Squadron too.
Maxwell then says,
that's another conversation for another day. I'm sure the others need you. Now head downtown.
Back in downtown, Jackson is fighting Lanker but on the losing end. As the fight is going on, Becky, Lyon, and Alexa show up. Alexa says,
looks like you need some help.
Lanker throws Jackson at them. Lyon catches him and says,
are you alright, brother?
Jackson says,
yeah, he knocked my prism out of my hand.
Miles then says,
I might not be able to step out there, but I can't sit and let another life be taken.
Miles looks over at the ground and says,
I think this thing is a morpher.
Miles then slides the prism over on the battlefield and Colby spots it. Colby then picks it up, walks over, and says,
I thought you might say that.
And gives Jackson his digital prism. Colby says,
I'm sorry if I've been a little hard to deal with. I'll try to adjust to living here. Jackson, like your dad said, we're all in this together and we all have a goal.
Jackson replies,
yeah, man, we're cool.
Lanker says,
either step down or get laid out.
Jackson replies,
I don't think we'll be doing any of those. Guys, let's morph.
All five pull out their digital prisms with different colored cartridges, insert them in the prism and press the button with a ranger icon on it and says,
Digital prism! Digitize!
The five then go into a morphing sequence and prisms alongside digital grids form around them and crystallize it into Power Ranger suits. The mayor says,
so they really are the Power Rangers. I can't believe it.
Chuck,
well, they are wearing the same color as the suits, so I'm not surprised.
Miles replies,
son, just sit back and enjoy this.
Chuck then sighs and says,
okay, Dad.
They all go into a roll call. Jackson says,
Digital Beast Red.
Alexa says,
Digital Beast Silver!
Lyon says,
Digital Beast Yellow.
Colby says,
Digital Beast Green.
Becky says,
Digital Beast Pink.
All five of them then do a pose based on their animals and say in unison,
using the powers of the digital age in Eden. Power Rangers Digital Beast!
All five of them then charge at Lanker and start fighting him. They all attack him with a flurry of kicks and punches. While in the middle of the fight, Lanker summons Pixels to aid him. The five Rangers then activate Beast Mode and head toward the Pixels. Alexis spins around and attacks the Pixels with her fins. Colby then punctures the Pixels with his antlers. The attack destroys half of the Pixels. Lyon slashes the Pixels with his claws. Jackson flies around with his wings and takes the Pixels out with his Sparrow Saber. Lastly, Becky uses her camouflage abilities to fool the Pixels and strike them one by one with her leopard bow. As the Pixels are destroyed by the Rangers, Lanker looks in shock and says,
I won't end up like Roger.
Colby then says,
I promise you that you will.
And delivers a brutal elbow that makes Lanker stumble across the ground. Lanker tries to attack the Rangers with his Lancer but they dodge it and stomp on it. The other Rangers then pull out their Beast Blasters and blast him to the ground. Jackson then flies over and picks him up. As Jackson soars into the air with Lanker in his hand, Lanker says,
"Put me down!"
Jackson then says,
"Okay,"
and drops him. When Jackson lands on the ground, Lion says,
"Let's hit him with the finisher!"
The Rangers then put their weapons together to form the Beast Bazooka. The Rangers aim their weapon at Lanker and say,
"Beast Bazooka! Dynamic finish!"
Jackson pulls the trigger and the blast pierces through Lanker's body and destroys him. Back on the Chaos Squadron's ship, Razor is angry that Lanker failed. Razor, while in his anger, says,
"Damn it!"
and then punches a wall in the ship. Groper then says,
"I thought he might be the one."
Cyan says,
"Well, he wasn't. He got reckless. See the... Give him a reset."
Sela then presses a button on the ship. A giant cartridge appears in the sky and transforms into Lanker. Lanker says,
"This time it's you five who will fall."
Jackson says,
"Guys, it's time to call on the Zords."
Everyone else nods their heads. The five summon their Zords. The Zords then travel from the base and the city. The Zords then all appear on the battlefield and the Rangers board the Zords. Jackson says,
"Red Sparrow Zord, charge!"
Alexa says,
Silver Dolphin Zord, charge!
Lion says,
"Yellow Lion Zord, charge!"
Colby says,
Green Deer Zord, charge!
Becky says,
Pink Leopard Zord, charge!
As the Zords charge towards Lanker, he says,
"Bring it on!"
and he waves his Lancer in the air. As he waves his staff in the air, it forms a red beam, and from the beam small Lancers fly out. As the Lancers are flying, Jackson pilots his Zord to use the wind from its wings to deflect the Lancers, and Colby then pilots his Zord to use its antlers to knock the Lancers in different directions. Lion uses the claws on his Zord to deflect the Lancers. Becky says, Alexa, are you thinking what I'm thinking? Alexa says,
Hell yes.
The two pilot their Zords to jump in front of Lanker and bind his arms. Lanker then says,
"I'll make you pay for biting me,"
and charges towards the Megazord with anger. Jackson says,
"Guys, it's Megazord time. Let's put him away."
Everyone else nods their heads. In their Zords, the Rangers grab their controllers and press the button with the Megazord logo on it. The Zords then come together and configure into a Megazord, with Lion Zord forming the torso, Colby Zord forming the head, Alexa Zord forming the left leg, Becky Zord forming the right leg, and Jackson Zord forming into the Megazord's back with its wings, and its arms sprouting from its sides. A sword then appears from the air into the Megazord's hand. Jackson, Colby, Lion, Becky and Alexa say,
"Digital Beast, Megazord!"
The five pilot the Megazord to charge towards Lanker. Colby says,
Deer kick!
And the Zord kicks Lanker. This knocks Lanker back, and then Becky says,
Leopard kick.
And the Megazord kicks Lanker with its right leg. Lanker says,
"Is that all you got?"
Lanker then engages in a fight with the Megazord. Jackson says,
"This is over for you."
The five press buttons with their controllers inside the Zord and say,
"Digital Beast, Megazord, final slash!"
The Megazord jumps in the air and delivers a slash with its sword to Lanker, which destroys him. Jackson says,
"This level is cleared."
Jackson then gives everyone a fist bump and tries to give one to Colby, but he denies it and says,
Yeah, that's not my thing.
Jackson then says,
"We'll take it one step at a time, man."
After the battle, as the Rangers are heading home, they are stopped by the mayor. The mayor says,
"So, you were the Power Rangers. I wouldn't have guessed it. You guys deserve a press conference, TV shows, hell, statues."
Lion says,
"That sounds interesting. I'm down for that."
Colby replies,
No, that sounds stupid. We're not celebrities. This is a real responsibility and lives are at stake.
Alexa says.
Your son almost got killed. We don't need anything else to happen to you.
Lyon then says.
Yeah, I don't want to see you two dead.
Becky then says.
Me either.
Jackson then says.
Guys, calm down. Mayor Lopez, what they're trying to say is, this is a bit too much for us. What we would like is if we kept this our little secret. We don't need things to be more complicated than what they are. We don't want to be in the spotlight. We barely have normal lives now.
Miles says.
Being normal is boring. Power Rangers have been here for years. If the others can handle the fame, I'm sure you all could.
Chuck then interjects and says.
Dad, I think we should respect their wishes. If they want us to go home and forget like this ever happened, I think we should.
Miles then replies.
But son, this is history. We shouldn't hide this.
Chuck then says.
Dad, you're being selfish. Put yourself in their shoes in this situation.
The mayor then looks over at the Rangers and replies.
You're right.
Miles replies.
You guys' secrets are safe with us. You don't have to worry about it getting out.
Jackson then says.
Thank you.
Miles replies.
Yeah, I hope that you guys keep doing what you're doing to keep the city safe. If you ever need my help, here's my card.
Jackson then says.
We'll definitely make the call, Mr. Mayor. It may not be immediate, but if needed, we'll definitely consider it.
We'll consider it. Back at the base, Maxwell says.
Once again, congratulations guys, good job. Now for the big reveal. Me, Grace, my team, and an extraordinary interior designer have made something special for you guys. Here are the keys to your new rooms. No more will you have to sleep on the couch or sleep on the floor. You guys, this is your new home. I did something that will hopefully make you guys feel more comfortable.
Alexa goes inside her room to see it has a nautical-themed bedroom set and a personal water tank for her. Alexa then says.
Finally, I can fully replenish myself with water. I've been feeling dehydrated since I got here.
She then pulls her hair back and a blowhole appears as she hops in the tank. Lyon then goes inside his room and sees a safari bedroom set and artificial safari trees. Lyon with excitement says.
All right! I was getting tired of laying on that damn sofa. That thing was really bad on my back.
Becky goes inside her room and sees a savanna-themed bedroom and grassland-decorated walls. Becky says.
I can take a break and do some of these facials and pedicures I've learned about.
Lastly, Colby goes inside his room to see his room and sees a forest-themed bedroom and artificial deciduous trees. Colby says.
Wow, you did this?
Maxwell walks inside and says.
Even though I have been struggling with the machine, I didn't forget how the game looked in some aspects. Consider this reward for all the hard work you guys have done so far.
Colby says.
You made my day.
And gives him a hug. Colby then retracts and says.
Don't ever tell the others I hugged you.
Maxwell says.
Okay, and also, I'm always here if you need me.
Colby then says.
I hope you are.
All four come back in the hallway and are grateful for Maxwell's gesture. The hallway door opens and it's revealed to be Jackson coming home from training his class. Maxwell says.
Son, you're just in time for my announcement. I think it would be better if we got to know our friends from the digital dimension a bit better. From now on, I want you guys to call me Maxwell instead of Creator. Creator is a cool name and all, but I want you guys to get to know me better as a person. I want what's best for all of you. I know that I may not get the machine done when you guys want it, but I'm going to do my best. But for now, we have to protect this world. You guys seen what the Chaos Squadron did today. They killed 2 people. All I've got to say is, things are going to get crazy. Crazier than you guys can ever imagine. But we all are going to keep doing our best to protect the people that we can.
The four then nod their heads in agreement. Maxwell then walks over to Jackson as he is entering his room and says.
Son, do you have a minute? I would like to discuss something with you.
Jackson replies.
Yes, Dad.
Maxwell replies.
Well, son, I feel kind of bad. Maybe I shouldn't have put so much responsibility on your shoulders. I forget, you have to balance having your own life and also teaching. I won't let you walk through this storm alone.
Jackson then says.
Thanks, Dad. It's been like hell trying to keep them out of trouble.
and teach the kids at Hans every week.
Maxwell then replies,
Don't worry, son. I got your back.
Grace then shows back up and says,
Try and get some rest.
Jackson then says,
You know I will. Before I go to sleep, Dad, I have something to tell you.
Maxwell then says,
What is it, son?
Jackson then looks at Grace and she says,
I can take a hint.
and walks off. Jackson says,
Well, let's just say the mayor and his son saw us morph, and they know we're Power Rangers. And
Maxwell then says,
Wait, what?
Jackson then says,
yeah, but they promised they would keep it a secret.
Maxwell then sighs and says,
Good. We don't need the city and government all up in our business. Things are already strange enough around here lately.
Jackson then says,
He also gave me his card for any time we may need a favor from him.
Maxwell then looks at the card and says,
Yeah, son, it would be good if he could let the city know about the toy drive I have every year for the orphanage.
Jackson then says,
See? Everything worked out for the best.
Maxwell then says,
Yeah, but next time make sure the coast is clear before proceeding.
Jackson replies,
Yeah, Dad. Well, I'm headed to sleep.
Maxwell then replies,
Well, good night, son.